someday that will come. And it was a Remembrance Day service. How did I know that? I could see red poppies. And I was asked to speak. Remember, this is my dream. I was asked to speak. And I said, oh, okay, I like to talk. Any opportunity I have, I'll welcome that. Not knowing what I was to be speaking on, I said, yes, I will. And in my dream, someone hands me what I would call a script. And I am told that this is what I will be reading. And I look at the script, and it's in French. And I'm going, well, I'm expected to translate from French to English and then to speak the words that I don't know and I did not prepare. And what I do at that moment is I begin to talk, and I am looking at the script. However, I am not translating the words. I am using my own words. In the dream, I have no idea what it is I'm saying, because that wasn't so important. However, I speak, and people liked what I said, and in my dream, they all clap at the end, and of course that made me feel very good. And I woke up from that dream, and of course we're not here to talk about dream analysis tonight. However, I wondered about that. And what I took from that dream was, first of all, that I could read from a script, I could find my own words, maybe I could do a combination of both. And I thought, oh, a week from now, I'm going to be speaking in front of a group of people, and I wonder if my subconscious is giving me a message of some sort about how I will be doing this. And I realized, remember, we can interpret dreams any way that we choose to, right? So that's the way I chose to interpret this dream, is that I would be saying some words that will be both written and also not. The other aspect of the dream, and this was really curious, was that I was given a script in French to translate. And I went, oh, okay, this makes sense. In one of my past lives, actually after I got my education degree, I majored in French, and I taught French. And I said, okay, however, what was even more meaningful for me was that I can remember, now this is about 50 years ago, I hate to say that, but it was. And I remember my father saying to me, what would you like, it's like, what would you like to do when you grow up? And I said, I would like to be a psychologist, counseling. And he said to me, oh, no, you don't want to do that. He said, you don't want to help people with their problems. And being the good girl that I was, I became a teacher, and I became a French teacher. And you know why? Because my father was a French teacher. And so also from that dream, what I took is that I now have choices. I now have choices about what I do in my life. And so that was very meaningful for me. What else came from that was that, oh yes, and of course the most important part of the dream, and I'll remind you about this now, is at the end of my presentation, everybody clapped. They really, really liked what I said, so I just thought I would mention that to you right now. Oh my, yes, so much to say. What I want to do at this point is I'm going to talk probably, I think we're together until 8:30. What I would really like to do is to, I think the word lecture was called, and I go, ooh, lecture, however, that's pretty well what it's probably going to sound like for a while, is I have something to say. And so I'm going to do that. And I am one who also loves questions. I've been known to ask a lot of questions. And so I hope that you also have many questions. And what I would like is for you to hold those questions and comments to the end. And I hope that's okay. So we will have time at the end to dialogue, to answer questions, etc. What I would like at this point is what's easier. Well, I'll just start here, just if you would take one. I have a handout. Hope I have enough handouts. If not, well, we'll work it out somehow. I think I've made about 30 of them. I don't know, how many do we have here? More. We have more than that?
Yes, but if they need the name, whoever doesn't get it, we'll send it to them.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. What I'm also going to do is, I'm going to put my glasses on. That would help. You'll notice on the handout as well, I have my my website and my telephone number if we're wanting to do any conversation following this. I am on a pilgrimage, folks, and I don't know about the rest of you who also may be on a pilgrimage. A pilgrimage for me is one in which I am doing a lot of wandering around. I'm wandering, and I am at times, it's what I call a digressing sort of journey. My pilgrimage, very seldom does my pilgrimage take a linear straight line. My pilgrimage loops around, and I backtrack, and I go sideways, backwards, all over the place is the pilgrimage. Sometime even on my pilgrimage, I do have a tendency to contradict myself. What this pilgrimage of mine is, when I talk about the spirit of worth and the wisdom of worth, is it tends at times, like any pilgrimage of wandering and going back and forth, it tends to leave me at times feeling a bit dislocated and disoriented. And so if it leaves me feeling that way, I would guess that it may leave you feeling the same way. However, to understand that with any pilgrimage, there is a purpose to the journey. And the purpose for the journey for me, after many years of living and many years of hearing people's stories, is to help people connect with the sense of their value and worth, and the sense of value and worth that comes with a connection with what I call the spirit, spirituality, and I'm going to talk a bit more about that in a moment. I enjoy words, and be those words verbally, or be they written, which is what I'm starting to do more of now. I do enjoy words. However, my use of words at times may bring on some emotional responses from people. And I say, bring it on. Because we know that our language, be it verbal, be it written, be it even through looking, as I look around the room tonight, there is a form of communication. So, words, very important. Whatever form the words take, something that I've written on the handout is the essence of existence is seeking to be whole, to be healed. Whether we communicate verbally or emotionally or physically, that is the essence of existence. And you'll notice that the word heal and whole have the same origin. So that is the essence of our existence. In the summer of 2002, that was about the time that I was working on my doctoral dissertation. By the way, the topic of that was looking at the connections between the traditions of religion, the traditions of spirituality, and Adlerian lifestyle themes. Of course, those of us who I graduated from Adler in, what year was that, 1990? We understand Adlerian lifestyle themes. For the public, it is personality styles, right? So that was my dissertation, was looking at religion, spirituality, and personality. So I was working on that about the time that I was asked to contribute in the Journal of Individual Psychology in an article on spirituality in the Adlerian form. And just to give you a description of what I used to describe spirituality, I say spirituality comes from the Latin word spiritus, meaning breath, to breathe. For me, it's synonymous with movement. It's the fundamental life force giving drive and direction to human existence. If you're not able or interested, or if you're interested, the Journal of Individual Psychology, 2002, the summer. Spirituality is unique, spontaneous, and a personal experience, and it's a feeling of connectedness to an appreciation of something bigger than oneself. So this was 2002. Since then, I've learned even more. And I've learned that to be with spirit, to be spiritual, is to be vulnerable, to be open, and you'll see this on the, under the experiencing worthiness with spirit. Be with vulnerability, open to the whole range of emotions, to subjective experiences. So as far as I'm concerned, when we are in a spiritual place, when we are with spirit, we are vulnerable, we are open, and of course, that can be rather disconcerting. However, in order to have or to be with spirit, to be vulnerable and to be open to the whole range of emotions. To be with uncertainty. And as human beings, I understand that this can put us in quite a dilemma, because as individuals, we like certainty. And what I'm now saying is to be with uncertainty, because within uncertainty there is mystery. And within mystery, we may find miracles that happen. We all have spirituality because we are spiritual beings on a human journey. Spirituality can be either isolating and destructive, as we see in the world, or it can be life-affirming and opening to life and the experiences of life. And mystery and awe. I also say that we are a spirit-seeking, questing culture. I mean, this is, why do people come to hear a talk about the spirit, or the spirit of birth, or honoring and embracing the healing soul? Because I believe that we are all on a spirit-seeking, spirit-seeking culture. And it's important then to ask ourselves, what are the effects of that on ourselves as individuals, on ourselves in relationship with others, in our communities, in our workplaces, in the larger community, in the world? What is the effect on religious institutions and also on spiritual traditions? Now, you'll notice that I have also written, when I say I like words, as well as spirit and spirituality, I have written the word religion. From my perspective, and well, as I say, I'll be open to questions and comments later, is that because we are spiritual beings on a human journey, we are going to find different ways to express and have relationship with spirit. For some people, it's very important to follow what we call more of a traditional religious aspect. And I say, fine. I believe that we need to respect that. Others may find their connection with spirit in other ways, such as connection with nature, art, music, even being of service to others. Those are other ways in which people find connection with spirit. So there are many ways in which. So my perspective is that spirit and spirituality is the umbrella and the all-encompassing, and from there we find different ways of expression of that. Now, I often wondered what it was that interested me in following the work of Alfred Adler, and 20-somewhat years later, I'm finally getting it. And that was because I believe that his theory on what he called, the psychology or individual psychology, the word individuum meaning unity, looking at the person holistically. I believe that he was a man of much spirit, because what we talk about is unity versus duality, that we are one. We are one within ourselves, and we are one in connection with others. And so I did not realize this at the time. However, I understand now that that is one of the reasons why why I believe that his work was, in a way, you've heard this before, he was a man before his time. There is much to be said for others who have done much in the areas of personality. I think everyone had their contribution to make. However, from that perspective, when we look at the unity of the person, and also the other reason why the Spirit had led me to his work was because of his emphasis on the inferiority feelings and inferiority complex. And I've put this on the handout, however, I'm going to read it because I feel it's so important. Gershon Kaufman, in his book, The Psychology of Shame, wrote, Adler's work on inferiority feelings and the inferiority complex reflects an increased awareness, this is on your handout, of the importance of shame-related phenomena. His concept of inferiority represents one of the first attempts to accord shame a central role in the development of personality. Adler perceives the effects of shame, but lacks an affect theory and an accurate language to partition or rearrange perceived data. So, from my perspective, when we talk about inferiority, what we're talking about really is very much what Kaufman talks about, an affect. Now, we've all heard, we use words like feeling and emotion. You know, a feeling is something we get when we have something to gauge it against, or to sort of calibrate it with. And an emotion is the outward expression of that feeling. An affect is really comes from a place of the subconscious, if you like. We do not have thought about it. It happens in the body. And this, you know, you know what we say, we teach what we need to learn. This is why I'm talking about this, because I am learning about this. And I'm finally putting some sense to the reason why, whenever in my life I felt that I had done something bad, I used to get this real tight in my stomach. And I wondered, what was that about? And I realize now, I call that my shame clinch, that it was a biological, physiological response that my body was having to something that I believed that I had done wrong. What I now understand, though, and you'll notice I haven't even written the word guilt on here. There is a difference between guilt and shame. Guilt is more behavior oriented. You know, you do something wrong, you feel guilty about it, you make amends, you say you're sorry, and then you change your behavior so it won't happen again. Shame is much deeper. I use the metaphor, you know, guilt is, oops, sorry, made a mistake. Shame is, oh my, I am a mistake. So there is a difference there. And so the other reason is quite often people will use words like I feel inadequate, I feel guilty, I feel, what are some of the other words we hear? I just don't feel good, that kind of thing. And you know, for years I wondered, how is it that I keep hearing the same thing over and over again from the same person? This is, you know, I'm feeling guilty, I'm feeling guilty, I'm feeling guilty. But I realized that no, this wasn't about guilt. Because if it's about guilt, I would say, well, gee, what are you going to do about that if you don't want to feel that way, right? What are you going to do about it? It was much deeper than that. And so this is where then I became interested in looking at what we call the shame-related phenomena. What we're saying is that's really what Adler was talking about, was that feeling of inferiority that goes much, much deeper, that goes within. And the other aspect is Kaufman, what Kaufman says is that shame is an affect of indignity, defect, alienation. He calls it a sickness of the soul. And that really resonated for me, a sickness of the soul. And what I say is, what is the antidote for this? It's the healing power of spirit. Healing power of spirituality, however that is expressed or felt by the individual. So it's understanding the affect aspect of things. Now the other that I've noted is looking at, when we talk about the healing soul, on the resource list I've written the work of Ram Dass, right? You've heard of Ram Dass, and it's from the Seeker's Guide. And there are many ways of interpreting the soul. What I say, the soul is about spiritual energy. I like to use the word energy a lot. Energy. And for me, although I have also heard of people who have been present, of individuals when they have died and actually seen something leave the physical body, fine. That also to me is a form of energy. What Ram Dass talks about, he says that the soul, that we are pure awareness, and that the pure awareness then breaks off, buds off, and it's from that the pure awareness then becomes the individual identity. And to me, that makes a lot of sense. I remember this was probably about 5 or 6 years ago. I was at a conference for the Canadian Counseling and Psychotherapy Association in Ottawa, and I heard sort of a spin-off of this explanation about the soul. And the woman basically spoke about that there is an eternal soul, a universal soul, and that we are all aspects of that in physical form. So she was talking about this, and of course it was so overpowering for me. I remember that at the end of the lecture, they were just turning the lights off, and it was one of those tiered kind of rooms. And I'm sure that I was just so excited and so overtaken by the Spirit that I fell on both my knees, and I'm thinking, I thought for sure I'd probably broken them. I mean, everybody came running, and it was a big room like that. And I just got up, and I was fine. And this is how I am, folks, is that when I have these kinds of experiences, I say to myself, okay, who or what is speaking to me? And to me, that opened up again the realization that there's something here that talks about the universal soul, of which we are all aspects of that, and within physical form. So, yeah. So when we're talking about healing the soul, then I believe that we need to be aware of the fact that we are spirit. However, we are still walking around in physical bodies. And how do we deal with life? And how do we handle those things that would hurt us and cause us difficulties in our everyday life? And I'm going to get into that in a bit, because I have a tendency, I am a philosopher. I am more of what you would call, I guess, an esoteric kind of person. This is probably why I like to talk about the soul and the spirit and that kind of thing, because not easily grasped, not easily held onto. Blows me out of the water, when I'll have a client say to me, what you said to me was so practical. It really helped, and I'm going, was that me? Because to me, it's just, then I go, okay, that probably is, because I hope I'm holding both. I hope that I am presenting what would be called more of a spirit, not easily grasped kind of concepts, and also being able to bring them into workable day-to-day living. So it's what often surfaces, I get a sense, what often surfaces in the difficulties that we do have in our daily life is what I call that sense of duality. Everything is either or. It's either this or it's that. It's black or it's white. It's good or it's bad. And it's that sense of duality that I think really gets us into trouble. And when I spoke earlier about the work of Adler, and I'm sure of others, where the focus, I believe, needs to be more on unity, how we look at ourselves as one, and how we look at each other in the world as one. So we have a tendency to divide reality into neat packages. And we do that because we have a sense that, yes, it does make life much easier, doesn't it, to have a package. There we go again, something certain. And what I'm inviting you now is to consider what would it be like to take on a different perspective, rather than looking at the duality. My sense is that we are not either or, we are both and. And I really emphasize that a lot when I'm talking with people. The fulfillment of the spiritual quest, I believe, is a release from that painful struggle of it's got to be this or that, either or. The soul feels cramped within this either or, and feels much more a sense of freedom, a freedom of unity. The sense of duality it's a reality. Oh, that's a rhyme, reality, right? And at the same time, how to look at both distinct packages and also something that is more open and more available for us to look at both ends. And I really encourage people to change their perception on this from, I'm either good or bad, for instance. I'm either good or bad. When we're talking a lot about worthiness, individual worthiness, that to understand that we are both, we can be saint and we can be otherwise. And because I love language and words so much, I am cautious and conscious about using the word sin or sinner. I have learned that the origin of the word sin is to miss the mark. Miss the mark. And I like the term used actually in recovery program, and Candace can probably support me on this, words such as shortcomings. I have a shortcoming. Because to me, a shortcoming means I came a bit short of perfection, whatever that may be. And the courage to be imperfect, right? The courage to be imperfect. So in the spirituality of imperfection, I've got that listed by Kurtz and Ketchum, which is very much on about recovery from addictions. I really like what they emphasize in the fact that how we learn to live with our imperfections, how we learn to accept our imperfections, rather than to become judgmental about them, rather than to go into that place of feeling that we are sinners. Now, I am not a theologian, and I know again about the fact that for me it takes a lot of courage to even voice the words such as sin and shame, because I know from a theological perspective that there are some traditions that where that is emphasized and where that is expected to be accepted. And I'm open to discussion on this and more reflection on this. What I prefer and what I find helps people is to talk about such things as imperfection or falling short or missing the mark, rather than being put within an aspect of being a sin or a sinner. Just a personal preference to that. What I've put here in how we experience worthiness with the Spirit is accept imperfections as an offering of courage and trust in that which is love. Now it's curious, when I was writing that sentence, this is how the Spirit works through me. I'm writing that, and I start with, okay, accept imperfections. Okay, I'm sitting there. And then the words come, as an offering of courage. How courageous it is for us as human beings to talk about our imperfections and to be with them. It takes a lot of courage. And then from somewhere came the words, and trust in that which is love. And trust in that which is love. The work of Kurtz or what Kurtz and Ketchum really say, and what helped me is, how can I offer and how can I encourage other people to offer their imperfections, their feelings of missing the mark, of being less than, how to offer those to the Spirit and the world, and then to see what happens about that. The tendency, of course, is to close up and to isolate and to want to cover up. And so what would it be like to have the courage to begin to open up and to get a sense of what might be there within the world for healing? The other aspect of this is, and I need to be aware of this too, because We are talking about opening up. We're talking about opening up the heart, opening up the soul. Nowadays, and I wrote this down here, nowadays, of course, we're all into brain research, aren't we? Everything, neuroscience, neuroscience, neuroscience all over the place. So I had to give this a bit of attention here as well. You know, it's like neuroscience is the new God. Oh my golly, that's the first time I've used that word tonight. The new God of our age, in neuroscience. And I read this in an article that said, a recent study showed that people who are presented with an argument containing neurological data consider the argument more compelling even when the data is irrelevant. So, my sense, and this is just a quick, is, you know, where does neuroscience and the spirit intersect? Okay, where do neuroscience, the brain, and the spirit, and the divine, where do they intersect? And I wonder if it has something to do with mysticism, mystical experience, something like that. And I'm just learning about this. I'm still wanting to figure out where does the brain intersect with the divine or intersect with the spirit. The fact is that we are human beings. We do have it is the prefrontal cortex. We do think, right? We are conditioned to think. And so it would be disrespectful to forget about that. It would be disrespectful to say to people, well, just stop thinking about your unworthiness. Start thinking about how good you are. Because remember what I said about the affect. The affect is precognitive. The affect is not about the brain. So if people have had an experience of being criticized, ridiculed, shamed, it didn't happen up here in the brain. It happened down here somewhere in the heart and soul. So, however, and that's where I also have a great deal of respect for what we call the body work, you know, people who do body work, whatever that may be, whether it's done in therapy, whether it's done in other ways. I'm just in a new experience now where I am seeing a doctor of traditional Chinese medicine, and we are doing acupuncture, and we are doing emotional, chemical, and physical allergies. And I'm going, oh, isn't this curious? And what she explains to me, whether it's traditional Chinese medicine or some of the others, it's about, again, keeping the energy going, keep the flow going like that. So we have a brain and we have a body, and we need to recognize and acknowledge those as well as we focus also on the soul that is being healed. Now, when I started, I did tell you in my wandering at times that I do a lot of digressing and over here like that. I hope that you are with me, because it is actually a very exciting journey that I am on. Now, along with, I just have to keep hunting through the words that I gave you on this handout so that I'm not missing anything here. And what happened to my first page? Okay, somewhere in here. Give me another word, folks, that's on that sheet of paper. Here it is. Okay. Shame, soul, duality, connectedness and belonging. Okay. Connectedness and belonging. We are yearning. We're all yearning to be part of. That's part of the human condition. We want to be part of. We want to be connected. We want to feel that we belong. I'm still not sure if it was Adler or Dreichers who said that about the belonging, but I'm looking over here hoping somebody, whoever said it. It was that. Okay, fine. Okay. That we all, part of being human is we do have a need to connect and belong. When a person has a sense of being ridiculed, put down, what happens there is, I call it, there's the disconnect. Okay, there's a disconnect. There's a feeling of being isolated and put aside. And so our journey, the pilgrimage, of course, is looking for ways to reconnect. And this is also where I look to the work of, you'll notice that I've mentioned here the Course of Miracles And my friend, are there any students of the Course in Miracles here? No? Yes, there are. Excellent. Okay, well, when we open up for discussion, you can help me in this regard as well. My friend Eric, who is a student of the Course in Miracles, talks much about our sense of being, oh good, I can't find the words, which means, here we go folks, just like my dream said, no script. I won't go with the script, I'll just go with my understanding of it. Okay, fine.
Community.
What's that?
Community.
Okay, a sense of being in community, of being connected. That we're living we're living a dream, and the dream is that we believe that we have been disconnected from the source, whether we call that source God, spirit, consciousness. That's the dream, that we are disconnected from the source. And that our goal or our desire, of course, is to be connected, is to be as one. Okay? And so whether we do that from a religious or traditional point of view, or whether you do that spiritually in your spiritual communities, whether you do that through prayer, meditation, whatever it is that brings you together, is to realize that really my sense from the Course is that we have not ever really been disconnected from the source, that we are connected, except life presents itself and we get a sense that we are. And so to really look at unity again, that we are all part of the greater whole, is our desire, is our yearning. So we are connected. We are desiring to be connected. We are desiring to be whole. We are desiring to be in community with others. And as I say, whether that community, and believe me, I have many people who say to me, you know, I feel my heart and my soul are hurting. I feel a great deal of pain. And when I go to my church, my synagogue, my mosque, and I pray or reflect or meditate, that gives me peace, it gives me a sense of wholeness, it gives me a sense of being connected, and for me that is a wonderful relief. And I go, good. Other people will say when I go to yoga class, when I'm in my meditation group, when I go on a 10-day spiritual retreat, that's when I am feeling connected. And I say, great. Other people will say when I'm sitting alone in a room and I light a candle, and that's when I feel connected to Source, the larger power greater than I. And I say, great. Because who am I to decide what is most powerful and most meaningful for people? What I do is I encourage a lot of questions. So I ask questions. The questions I ask are meant to be respectful questions that help people reflect, to go take that journey within. And we have a pilgrimage. I'm on an outward pilgrimage. I'm also on an inward pilgrimage. And that inward pilgrimage is a lot about question and reflection. And this is where the aspect of wisdom comes in. And believe me, when you've lived on this earth as long as I have, you begin to realize that there are benefits to the aging process. And one of them is about wisdom. And I found a couple of quotes that I thought were so applicable to my way of looking here about questions. This comes from a philosopher and a theologian in the 11th century who said, the first key to wisdom is constant and frequent questioning, for by doubting, we are led to question, and by questioning, we arrive at the truth. And so in my family says to me, oh, show me your badge. It's like, you know, like I'm a policeman and I have all these questions. Or, oh, here comes Glow out with the white light again, you know, interrogation. I say, no, those are not the questions I ask. The questions I ask are questions meant for self-reflection and to go within. Wisdom is knowledge which has become a part of one's being. And the key to wisdom is knowing all the right questions, not the answers. And I know this is so disconcerting for a lot of people, but it's knowing the right questions. And so when we are looking for a way to feel more worthy and valuable, ask the questions about how do I find my worth? How do I find my value? How do I connect? How am I in community? How do I have conversation with something that is greater than myself? And also within myself, because this is my belief as well, is that the power out is also the power within, because remember, we are a bud from the universal, I'm mixing my metaphors. That's the other thing, I love metaphors, but I do have a tendency of mixing them sometimes. Because I also use the metaphor of the light. It's like the universal light. There's the universal light, the bonfire of the spirit, and I am an ember of that light, and I believe each one of you are, and I believe everyone who comes to see me and wants help in their life are an ember of that universal bonfire, right? Got the metaphor in line on that one. So, community. Oh, I love this line. When we talk about connection, community, because we know that when people are hurting, when the soul is hurting, what we recommend is that they do look for community, they do look for connection. The key to community is the discovery that we all are looking for, but we find what we are looking for only by being looked for. We find what we are looking for only by being looked for. That's community, that's connection. However, what happens when a person is feeling so inferior and defective and inadequate, and so has a tendency of covering up with that shame? How then are they going to be looked for, right? And my sense is that we look at each person as having the potential to want to open up. And at the same time, remember, it's not an either or, it's a both and also respecting the difficulty and the challenge in doing that. Remember that we find what we are looking for only by being looked for. Participating in community means listening. So yes, I ask a lot of questions and I listen. And what I do is encourage other people to listen to themselves. Listen to your body. Listen to your heart. And listen to what is happening out there. Listen even to the silence. What is the silence telling you? Listen to that as well. The Brene Brown, how many of you have heard of Brene Brown? She's been to town recently, okay. And she has, for 10 years now, been doing a lot of research, primarily with women, I gather, qualitative research, and looking at the aspects of inferiority, inadequacy, and shame. And she talks about resiliency. What she says is that as human beings, we will not ever be without the feelings of inadequacy. I mean, I think that's what Adler was saying too. It's like, you know, we keep moving for that fictive goal. You know, the goal, we're looking for something. Oh, if I find that, that will make me feel better about myself. No, that didn't work. Well, then it's got to be another relationship. No, it's got to be money. No, it's got to be another job. No, it's got to be this. It's got to be that. And we keep moving in that direction. And the reason why I believe really, he did not put it into words, but I'm going to put it into words to say that my belief is that what we're looking for again is the unity with the soul, the universal soul. That's really remember our spirit question. We are a spirit questing culture. That's what we're looking for. And what I would hope is for all of us to realize that it's right here, right within us, right within us. So what she talks about is learning to live with. And I do believe that that is part of our challenge. That's part of our invitation living on this earth, is how do we live with our imperfections? Not a matter, so it's the same as when I have people coming to me and saying, you know, I'm feeling so depressed, I'm feeling anxious, I want to get rid of that. I say, no, 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 we don't want to get rid of it. We want to listen to it. We want to hear what is the message. So the same with the feelings of inadequacy. It's like, no, we don't get rid of that. We listen. What is happening there? So the use of the questions, you know, what is this like for you? What is this experience like for you? What is this saying for you? What are you picking up from that? And to listen to those messages as well. I'm going to, what I want to do is just turn back to community wisdom. Okay, I just want to look at some of these other resources. So Kaufman, I spoke to you about Kaufman, the psychology of shame. Nathanson and Tompkins. Would you believe there's actually, and you know, I love how life works. Here I am, like 21 years later, because I can remember I contacted this individual when I first started my master's, and that was in '88. Oh, that's 23 years ago. And he had designed what was called an internalized shame scale. For some reason, that resonated for me. Here we are, 23 years later, and he's updated it, and this is David Cook. And I think, isn't that interesting, where there's actually a scale out there to measure unworthiness. So we've got it again, the both and on the scales. We've got those who are going to measure this using a specific scale, and then there are those like Brene Brown who are doing more qualitative work as well. So somewhere along that continuum, and I love continuums as well, because continuums also measure that it isn't, because we are all spiritual beings, that one's sense of the spirit might be at one end or the other. Or some might say, well, spirituality is at one end and religion's at the other end. Or feelings of unworthiness are at one end, and when there's a feeling of unworthiness, there's a tendency, we know, of focusing on the self, and then on the other end is more of the empathy and the interest in others. You know, there we go, social interest in the interests of others. So it's all on a continuum. So I would encourage you as well to begin to look at that perception as things being on a continuum. There again, rather than either or, but the both and. Let's look at both aspects of this. So I'm just looking for right here. Okay, experiencing worthiness with spirit. Vulnerability, uncertainty, yeah, respectful curiosity. There's a difference between asking someone questions, such as, you know, why did you do this? Or why would you think that you're so inferior? I mean, gee, you get up in front of a group of people and you talk and you have courage to do that. Gosh, Gloria, how could you possibly think of yourself as being inadequate and inferior? Well, I do. And so I, though, would prefer somebody asking me the question, how is that for you? Or what goes on for you, Gloria, when you get up in front of a group? Or what do you need to encourage you to realize there might be something that you say that will shed some light for people? Those are the kinds of questions I'm talking about. The questions that help me and individuals go within and go, okay, how is this for me right now? Now, to own and call, and I've had some individuals say to me, you know, well, first I need to say something. My family name, of course, is Gloria. The name that my family of origin name, my family, my close friends, and my friends within my spiritual communities, of which I have several, do call me Glow, because I say that is my spirit name, is Glow. So you'll hear me say Glow at times. I've had people say, you know, Glow, do you realize that when you go out there and start talking about things like unworthiness and shame, ooh, you know, are people ready to hear that? Are they ready to hear that? And I go, well, those who are ready to hear it will hear it. And they have a choice as to what they do with it. So my new focus in life is to own it and call it as it is. I'm not sure, without negative judgment or without compensating. I'm not sure that that's so new, folks. I think what I'm talking about is aspects of mindfulness here, right? Being mindful, being aware, being with it as it is and calling it as it is without having a negative emotional response to it. Just say, this is how it is right now. And I do that quite a bit with people. I say, oh, so this is how it is right now. Or when I start feeling very sad, very angry, you know, those emotions that we are not supposed to look at or talk about, that are so uncomfortable, I just go, oh, so this is how it is for me right now. Okay? So if I need to go out into a field and yell, if I need to sit and have a good cry, if I need to talk to somebody, I will, because this is how it is right now. Accepting the paradox. So there's, I love metaphor and paradox. You know, that life is a paradox. It's the realization that we are all unique, we are individual, and at the same time, we are desiring to be as one. I don't know, how do we do that? How do we do that? This is part of the journey, right? We want to be able to say, oh, you're so unique, you're individual, you have the, fine. There again, it's not an either or, it's a both and. How to be unique in your own way and also to be part of. Okay. Explore metaphor as the invitation for deep reflection and guidance. So the use of metaphor, I think, is very, very powerful when something is as something else. And right now I can't come up with an example, but I'm sure I used a metaphor here tonight, and I hope you remember what it is. And if you don't, somebody else will come up with one later when we open up for discussion and questions. Thank you very much. Okay, the other experiencing worthiness with spirit, I talked about missing the mark. Okay, missing the mark, which is the original definition of sin. Understand missing the mark as the opportunity to correct perception. It's like, oh, okay, missed the mark on that one. What am I invited to do? Oh, I'm invited to correct my perception on that. It's like going in, when your sight is going, what do? But you get a pair of glasses, right? So rather than, oh my golly, I am a sinner, I have sinned, it's more like, oh, I wonder, do I need to change the way I look at this possibly? And I believe that that is a powerful recognition for people, and it takes a lot of courage, because what happens is that our inferiorities and our sense of shame often holds us back from going, okay, so I'm not seeing it clearly. Please tell me how to see it. How often do we do that? Not often. I think as we get more physically, emotionally, and socially and spiritually healthy, then we are more willing to go, okay, tell me, what do I need to look at here? Honoring and embracing the soulful journey. Okay. Practice expressing alternatives to the self-deprecating story. We all have a story. We call that the narrative. And we have a story about our life and the way we see our life. And I think there comes a time when we need to go, okay, how is this story serving me? Use an example. I just came back this fall. I was back at the 100th anniversary of the incorporation of my hometown. Very special time. Some people I hadn't seen since I left at 17. And my father had been the mayor of the town, the principal of the high school, so, you know, a real epitome out there in the community. So if I didn't know people, they knew me. And everybody came up and said, oh, I remember your dad. He was a wonderful teacher. He did this, he did that. You know, all these wonderful things. And my mother was a saint. My mother was a saint. So I heard at the reunion. Well, that was quite an experience for me, folks, because I had different stories. I had different stories. What I came from that, though, is I decided that now that I'm a senior, I have many, many possibilities besides having a gold card. I have other cards now. I will pull out a card from the deck that says, I can now change the story of my life, the narrative about my life, from something that would put me down, that was deprecating, and I could change that story now. And so that's what I'm saying, is practice expressing alternatives to the story that has you believe that you are unworthy, defective, and unlovable. You may want to start to practice that. Explore the vibrancy in connection with the community of inherent value and worth. The other thing I'm learning is we can make choices now about who we want in our lives. Okay? If you are in a community where your value and worth is being questioned and doubted and deprecated and put down, you may want to consider finding another community. Or if you stay in that community, you may want to choose to find the words to let this community know that you are changing your life story and you would like them also to read that chapter and begin to see you differently as well. So to be with the connection of inherent worth and value, people that you are with, the community. Be guided to balance inner relationship with spiritful energy and outer relationship with others, the world, and daily coping. So the fact is, we focus on, the inner work, get in touch with your soul, your spirit, your inner energy. That is all very good work. The fact is, though, is how do you then balance that with the reality of the world and the stressors of the world and the challenges? The life tasks, right? The life tasks, how to find a balance between those. And how do you take the energy from the one and connect it with the energy of the other? Because remember, it is all in unity. The energy within and the energy without is in unity. Meditation as deep awareness of self-compassion and compassion for others. There again, meditation is one of the forms. Everyone has a different form of, I often say even prayer. There are different forms of prayer. There are different forms of meditation. However, to use whatever it is that you need to begin that, I call it having a love affair with yourself, okay? Because it is only when you have that love affair with yourself and you have the compassion for yourself and you understand that yes, there are imperfections. Only when you accept those within yourself will you then be able to accept them with others, and only then will you have relationships that are meaningful and healthy and give you what is intended to give you, which is wholeness and goodness. Prayer and its many forms as an antidote to shame and blame. So, there are many forms of prayer. I wonder, I've heard it said that, prayer is speaking to God, meditation is listening to God. And for some, God may be a personal God. For others, God may be more of an impersonal entity and energy. Some people may even feel a bit uncomfortable using that word. I use the word because at times I see as more personal, at other times I see more as an entity. But God, consciousness, I have members of my family who say to me, spirit? What are you talking about? Spirit? What do you mean by spirit? What do you mean by consciousness? What do you mean by awareness? Because for them in their life, they are more comfortable with God, and they are more comfortable with a personal God. For some, it is a God of he. For others, it's a God of she. For others, it's either or, both and. And so I respect that, and I believe that when we open up to the respect for others, then they will also respect my perspective on it as well. Creative expression as the engagement with nature. Remember, connecting with the spirit, a spirit of worthiness, healing the soul can come in nature, it can come in art, in music, in dance, in service to others, in social activism, in conversation. It can come with a touch, it can come with a gaze with others. Understand and initiate the body's desire to move from constriction to freedom. And this is what I say about any kind of body work that people are involved in, or walking. This is, people exercise, walking is good for us. Well, yes, it's because it gives freedom, it keeps the energy going. So whatever form you use, I say do it to keep the energy going and to stay with unity and wholeness. Spiritual practice, whatever that may be, and maybe you don't even name it as a spiritual practice, but the goal is to enhance the awareness of your personal identity with a greater whole, a higher power, either a personal God or more of an impersonal reality of consciousness. I call this spiritual mirroring as ways to see other souls. Okay, it's like you put up a mirror, and the mirror is two-sided. People can see you, you can see others. The spiritual, and this comes in collaboration and cooperation. When you collaborate and cooperate, then what happens is your soul is being mirrored and other souls are being mirrored to you. I believe that we are all mirrors of the soul to others. We collaborate, we cooperate. Care of self and others, okay? Physical, mental, emotional health and well-being. So we are responsible for ourselves. We are also responsible for each other to ensure health and well-being. Rituals and rites of passage, another way to honor and embrace the soulful journey. Quite often, now I hear people talk about missing, or rituals. And I think now we are, there are more what we call spiritual celebrants, for instance, who are involved in helping people with, marriage vows, with times of death, whether it happened within the church or out of the church. I truthfully believe ritual or rite of passage. I mean, when we are sitting and we are sitting at a meal, for instance, and someone says, I'd like to say a few words before the meal, that's ritual. It does not have to be something, I mean, we have rituals that are quite elaborate. It does not have to be elaborate. Something of that nature. And rites of passage. In many cultures and many traditions, of which I am certainly not an expert, there are many rites of passage. So it's, when people pass to another age, another part, I believe that I have just, the rites of passage with my gold card, that was the rite of passage. The last is respect a slow pace and the silence. The slow pace. And this is something I'm still learning. To slow down and to respect the silence. Within the silence, people get nervous about silence, and I say we need to honor the silence.